employed by the district. While the majority of administrators are employed in their positions pursuant to the California Education Code, there are several administrators who are employed pursuant to the employment contract. In order to provide a uniformity throughout the district, the board has instructed Superintendent Carasosa to evaluate the employment status of all administrators and bring forward a recommendation to the board in the spring of 2013 as to how the administrators should be employed either pursuant to the Education Code or pursuant to an employee contract. In the meantime, because notification must be provided in December to affect administrators on employment contracts, the board in closed session voted not to renew the employment contract with Dean of Facilities, which is set to expire June 30th, 2013. Upon expiration of his employment contract, however, the Dean of Facilities' employment status will immediately revert to the employment pursuant to the Education Code effective July 1st, 2013. So, Eric, you still have a job.
Thank you.
Once again, however, it is expected that the Superintendent Carasosa will provide an update to the board by the spring of 2013 on the appropriate manner of employing administrators. Well, that was a bunch. In closed session, the board unanimously voted to reject the claim filed by Frank Silva against the district. Additionally, in closed session, the board unanimously voted to reject the claim filed by the city of Visalia against the district. And further, the board further instructed Superintendent Carasosa or his designees to provide notice of the rejection of the claims to the appropriate parties and to submit both matters to our JPA for handling and administration. Would you please join me in pledge to our flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I declare all board offices vacant. Mr. Carasosa, would you conduct the election of officers?
Okay, this is the annual organizational meeting of the board, which, for those of you who may not be familiar, is set under statute each year to follow what would have been regularly scheduled elections. This past November was the regularly scheduled election for 2 trustee areas in our board district structure, and earlier this evening we issued the oath of office to return officially to the board for board members Mann and Cardoza. And now, following the issuance of oath of office for board members, we have the election of officers. Election of officers is conducted among the board members themselves. Election of offices for the board is one of those distinct privileges and responsibilities held by the board. We have no specific guidelines, if you will, or criteria. Board presidents and vice presidents and clerks can be re-elected to consecutive offices. There's no limit on the terms, and all board members share equally in their technical qualifications. So with that, the board does have the opportunity tonight to elect their officers. And we start with the election of the office of president. The way that election of officers goes is we open the floor first for a motion for a nomination to the office. If that motion receives a second, then we have the opportunity with a motion and a second on the floor for any discussion. Once board member discussion is concluded, we will call for the question, and a vote on that motion and second for office would be taken. If there's not a second on a particular motion, a motion can die for lack of a second, at which time we would call for another motion. If there's a motion and a second, then the vote of that motion and second would prevail. If for some reason an officer isn't elected through the motion and the vote, then the floor would be open again for a new motion. Once we elect our president, we would then seat our president if there's a change, and we would proceed then with election of our vice president in our office of clerk. So with that, yes, President.
I would like to nominate Lori Cardoza as president.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Sherman. We have a second by Board Member Nunez. Any board discussion on the nomination of Board Member Cardoza for the office of president? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Board Member Cardoza is now president. We're going to change nameplates real quick. Thank you. Okay, next we have the office of Vice President. And remember, these are elections for the 2013 year. Officers who will serve the Board of Trustees for the College of the Sequoias. And at this time, we will open the floor for a motion for the office of Vice President of the Board.
I'd like to nominate John Zumwalt, vice president of the board.
We have a motion by Board Member Sherman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Board Member Nunez. Any board discussion regarding the nomination of Mr. John Zumwalt for Vice President of the Board? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we have elected John Zumwalt, Vice President of the Board. And the final elected position for our slate of officers for the College of the Sequoias Board of Trustees is election of Clerk of the Board. I will open the floor now for nominations for the position of Clerk of the Board.
I nominate Earl Mann.
I second.
Motion to nominate Board Member Earl Mann by Board Member Zumwalt, second by Board Member Sherman. Any discussion regarding the nomination for Clerk of the Board of Board Member Earl Mann? Call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously for the election of the position of Clerk of the Board, Earl Mann. Okay, at this time I will turn the microphone over to our Board President, Cardoza.
Okay, if I tried to tell you I wasn't nervous, I'd be lying. So it's my first meeting as president. I hope all of you will bear with me. And as I make mistakes, Dan's been asked to kick me under the table or nudge me on my shoulder. And I'll do the best I can. I'd like to start by thanking Greg for serving as our president for the past few years. Thank you, Greg. It's been, I guess, a pleasure to have you as president and to know that college was always be watched over. And we thank you for that. And I count on you to guide me here as well. I guess we'll start with public comments. Am I right? Okay. Per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time, either on the agenda or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes allowed for each speaker with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. Are there any public comments concerning items on the agenda? Okay, come up and say your name, Teresa Taylor.
President, board members. I will ask you to use your discretion, and I'm going to speak in regards to Resolution 22, for item that is on the agenda regarding the project. And we do have a number of students, 4 or 5, that would like to speak, so I would hope that you would allow each of them to speak since this is their opportunity. I'll try not to take as much time. My name is Teresa Guadiana, the Puente Project Counselor, co-coordinator of the Puente Project for the last 17 years here at College Point. First off, item 22, the way it is worded, in my mind, in the minds of many, that know the Puente Project is misleading. When it says that we only serve currently 50 students every year, the program it involves, if you remember, I've spoken to the board numerous times, but it involves, it's a transfer readiness program sponsored by the California Community Colleges and the University of California. The mission is to help students transfer to a 4-year university, obtain their bachelor's degree, and return to the community as mentors and leaders. In that respect, it has 4 prongs, which is English classes, counseling classes, counseling, mentoring from professionals from the community, and leadership development through our Puente Code. The current structure of COS English classes is 25 students are allowed per English class. That's the limit. Puente has always gone above that. We take about 28 students. And each year we have a cohort of classes. They go from the pre-transfer English 1 to English 1. We have 25 students. If we only have 1 cohort, 50 students, 2 cohorts that are in classes. But they continue on receiving the counseling, many times the mentoring, and the other support services. So at any one time on campus, I've looked over our numbers, we can have 150, 200, to over 300 students that we are actually serving through the Puente Project per year. So I just want to make that comment, whereas that way the resolution is stated, that is misleading. As I mentioned, the Puente Project has many components. I want to at least highlight for a few of the things for you. Being a community college, and the Puente Project really combines a lot of those aspects. To me, I've worked here for 27 years. And this is the one program that I've worked for that I have really had a community of working with, networking with my fellow colleagues on campus, because I collaborate with the English department, with many of the other departments, and then with the community. So with this program, just with the mentoring component, I was just running some numbers today. Since 1996, mentors from the community have donated about 13,000 hours to COS Puente students. So when we're reducing the Puente Project, you're also reducing the number of volunteers that this program has brought into the college, in addition to the community support in the means of actual donations of funds to the program. The Puente Project has received $25,000 from an Edison grant in 2009, $15,000 from an AT&T grant in 2010. We've received monies from the foundation, from the University of California, from Fred Reese, who donated $40,000 to keep the Puente cohort going for 4 years, along with various other fundraisers. Palma Holmes has donated in the last year and this coming year, it will be a total of $18,000 in scholarships. And those are just a few off the top of my head, in between appointments today, that I could jot down. And plus the other volunteers that we have had over the years. And the other thing in the resolution, it states that you're going to be reducing the classified service due to an existing lack of work. There is not a lack of work in the Puente Project. We host an event. We have the students are matched with mentors. They're required to meet 10 hours per semester. We have about 6 of those hours coordinated through the Puente Project, where we have an event roughly about every other month. So every month, we're coordinating an event to bring mentors and students together, and that takes a lot of coordination. That's an event for about 100 people every month, every other month, besides taking them to trips to universities. The leadership development, the students will be talking about that. When we look at the statistics, I know that the board and the administration is looking at the bottom line and the dollars with all the financial budget crunch that's going on in the state. And we understand that, but this is a program that has brought lots of good publicity to the college and success. In 2010, the COS Fuente project was given the Academic Senate from the California Community College Board of Governors Exemplary Program Award Honorable Mention. In 2008, we were given honorable mention through the Excellencia in Education, and that's a national award that they look at both 2-year and 4-year through the whole nation. And the COS Fuente project, right here in our little town of Visalia, California, was given honorable mention, and I'm quite proud of these awards that we have obtained over the years. And myself also was awarded the Regina Steinbach Stroud Award from the Academic Senate, but that reflected to me more upon the program and the college and the students and the success that they have had. The latest statistics from the state Fuente project that we receive every year as they track our students is we have, from 2008 to 2009, we had a 92 persistence rate, whereas the college in general had a 65% persistence rate. From 2009 to 2010, we had an 88 persistent rate, whereas the college COS in general had a 64 persistence rate from one year to the next. And when you look at our aggregate retention rate, we had a 69% transfer rate from 1997 to 2003. And they compare that to COS students who have attempted an English and a math, a transfer level English or a transfer level math. So we have similar comparisons as not all students intend to transfer. So when you look at cutting this program, it's one of the programs that has been very successful. Also looking back, the Ford Foundation many years ago came again to Visalia, California to do a documentary on the Fuente project. And what program did they pick? They picked College of the Sequoias Fuente program because we are a well-established program. We are considered the model program in the state of California. And that doesn't come very easy. It comes from a lot of hard work. It takes all of the people here. Over the years, before we had a full-time secretary, we had 2 student workers, we had our clerical support. I even had a full-time student that had an interim position because of all the work that it takes. And I've asked administrators over the years, when you just look at the bottom dollar, how do you compare that to the success that the students are having? They're not repeating classes, they're moving on, the majority of them, they're transferring, they're getting their bachelor's degree, they're getting their master's degrees. We have one just received a master's degree from Berkeley. She's doing an internship in New York at the Good Morning America show. We have another student that maybe will speak. She's at UC Riverside. She just got back from doing an internship in the state capitol. And we have one student that when he started Fuente, he had, I believe, a 1.5 GPA. He is right now in his last year of obtaining his PhD from the University of Utah. So the program works. And I asked you to look not just at the numbers, but the success of what they mean and how you can quantify something that's quality, because the numbers are there. And lastly, the professional development that the Fuente project provides for the staff and the students at no cost to the college. Every year, the staff attends training once a semester for professional development, where we are housed up in mostly it's in Berkeley, and professionals from all over the country or the state of California are there to provide for us, plus the Fuente project provides professional development for the students in the means of a yearly a yearly student motivational conference, and along with other leadership opportunities. So besides all the numbers that I know you need to look at, I hope that the board will look at the big picture and all the other things that go into that. That if you don't have all the facts before you today, I ask that you delay voting on this and maybe we can talk about some other alternatives. I know there is a letter that one of our staff members wanted to read, was not able to, and wanted to submit. One of our students is going to read that letter.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. And yeah, if students want to speak, we'll limit you to 5 minutes, but we're happy to hear your comments. Thank you, Teresa.
My name is Alejandra with the Secretary of College of Sequoias and a letter on behalf of Valerie Erlich.
Can you please state your name again, please?
Alejandra Gonzalez. And Valerie Erlich was actually a professor here at College of Sequoias who taught English and physical education. On Friday, December 7th, I spent the day along with 17 of my department colleagues reading English 251 portfolios filled with academic student writing from throughout the many sections of this course on campus. There were narratives about our students' tough lives, poignant enough to cause a lump to come to my throat. There were tortured arguments that made it hard to follow a logical thought. There were responses to books that showed the beginnings of deep insight and understanding, and there were essays from women students, obvious due to their challenging assignments despite our attempts of anonymity, who were being asked in their classes to link multiple complicated Latino texts as they engaged observations about the world. Now all our students are taught to do this at the 251 level, but the ones the students were actually getting it in droves. They are Chicano literature, connecting with their daily lives, yes, but moving beyond the personal in order to make informed, documented, logical arguments to persuade readers about their ways of seeing women's issues, culture, coming of age, literacy, substance use, and abuse, activism, and among many other important topics. Do you know what it takes to get students to learn and to perform at the level while it is a pre-collegiate class? I taught English 251, Introduction to Academic Writing, both in Puente and out for decades, and I'll tell you, it's one of the hardest things to get students to learn. How to move beyond merely the personal and into the societal, cultural, political, academic as they make recent arguments in writing, and yet this is the basis for their entire collegiate career. Success here is the groundstone for their changes at college. Now we are facing not just a cutback in the most successful program from 2 to 1 cohort, but we just heard that the secretarial position will be removed as well. Wow, this is how we want to recognize the work of what the students do. This is how we recognize the work the faculty and community do. I realize that we're in tough budget times and we need to make hard cuts, but cutting back Puente by 50% is huge. And it hurts students. By cutting the secretarial position, we force more coordination work onto the 2 faculty involved, and we take time away from students. Is this how we treat one of our best practice programs? When the students graduate at higher rates than the rest of the campus and come back to serve our community at higher rates. Does saving the cost of a secretary or the cost of a second cohort justify jeopardizing those rates? That success? Will I continue to read the kinds of succinct analysis essays, the kind of essays showing hope for our community if the ones that teachers have to sit on hold on the phone to schedule a bus instead of work with students on their logic skills? Write reports instead of listening to students? Are we the kind of campus that wants to cut into one of the most successful programs? I can only hope that you will consider the short-sighted view. Respectfully, Valerie L. Erlich.
Thank you. Any further?
Anything they read, they have to send us a copy.
Alejandra?
Can you submit that since you read it? Can you hand it in to Janet? Thank you.
She read a condensed version since it was kind of long.
Okay. Okay, could you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Stephanie Garcia. So good evening, board members, faculty, staff, students, and fellow Mestiza. When they came to my life in the form of a postcard, After graduating high school, my mother handed me the card saying I had to go with my father to this Fuente informational meeting. I must admit, at first I was resistant, but I would have never imagined that small 4x6 postcard would make such a change in my life. Fuente has been one of my greatest support systems throughout my COS career. During the fall 2010 semester, my father was put into the hospital. Instead of being in class, I was beside him, assisting and helping him. I will never forget that moment when I saw a COS number calling me, and it was Miss Guadiana on the other line. She was calling to make sure I was fine since I did not attend her class or Mr. Hurst's English class. When I hung up the phone, I realized what Fuente truly was. Fuente means a lot to me and more to other students, and it is a familia. It is a family to me. I applied to 2 internships for the next semester to work on our nation's capital. If it wasn't for Fuente, I would never have these opportunities come to me. Walking through the halls, I have these incredible memories, most of them with my fellow Fuente staff. From motivational conferences to class discussions to Mr. Hurst's class, I felt motivated to make a difference and make something of myself, but most importantly, for my family and my community. I would not be the woman I am if it was not for Fuente. This is my last week at COS, and it brings me much sadness. COS has greatly prepared me for this university level, and I do not want other potential students to miss out on the amazing experience that I had here. I would not want to leave this campus knowing that there will be 25 empty seats for the fall 2013 semester. 25 empty seats of students who desire and have the passion for success, but do not know how to get there. 25 voices that will not be heard and not be assisted by our award-winning staff. Fellow board members, I hope you consider my request in not cutting the Fuente for fall 2013 semester or any future semester. I love Fuente with all my heart. If you eliminate one of our positions and eliminate half of the potential students, that is like removing my family members away from me. When my father passed away this past May, Fuente was by my side, encouraging me to finish finals. I make my father proud. With the support of all my Fuente staff and all of my classmates, all the advisors and counselors, I passed all my classes with a high GPA, and I will be transferred to UC in the fall. I would like to end with this phrase, and I will forever hold in my heart, in which all Fuentistas should know. Once a Fuentista, always a Fuentista. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Brenda Contreras and I am the current Fuente president. My vice president is going to pass out a flyer of what we did this past Friday, which was a coat drive at Bixby Elementary. And we do this every year. It's a coat drive that we do for students who are low income here in Sonora County. And it brings the club together, and it really shows the students a side of giving back to the community, especially around the holiday season. Without the students in the two cohorts, we would not be able to put this together. They really came out and helped us with this, and we really helped make a lot of young students happy and warm this holiday season. Without Luz, we also would not be able to do this. She actually made these flyers for us, and I think we would just fall to pieces without Luz. I just want to add that I understand it is a tough time for our college financially, and I know these cuts are necessary, but I just hope that in the future you don't forget about what because we are always going to be here. Just like Stephanie said, and I'm also transferring in the fall, and it would break my heart to see 25 empty seats, 25 people that could have that could have so much potential and, really develop themselves as a leader, just like I did. I would never have thought of becoming the FIOS Puente Club president, but because of all the support I had with the staff and the students, my leadership just came out of me. And I really think that without Puente, it wouldn't have taken me more than 2 years to transfer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Yamlet Hernandez, and I was last year's 2011-2012 Puente Club Secretary. And I'm here to talk about how the Puente has helped me so much. Without Puente, I wouldn't be able to transfer this spring 2013 to California State University of Chico. And as secretary, the senior secretary has helped me get the sponsors for the 5K we did last year. Puente Club hosted our first annual 5K 2K walk, which raised over about $5,000 for scholarships to help Puente students continue their education. And without the help of the senior secretary, I wouldn't have done so much of raising that much money in sponsorship. And Puente helped me with the counseling, and they helped me with the counseling what I need to do in order to transfer here within 2 to 3 years, and cutting back the would not make students transfer sooner. And thank you.
Hello, I'm Daniel Hernandez, and I'm also a former Batista. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this helped me. After high school, I wasn't planning on coming to college. My mom signed me up for one thing, so I really had no choice. But my attitude towards school was, it wasn't what it is now, I'll tell you that. I graduated out of high school with 2.0. That's what I came in with. With my first semester, I got a 2.5. I had that same attitude. My teachers, Miss Mariana, Stacy Grant, Miss Venezuela, Luz, they didn't give up on me. And now I'm getting 4.0s. I never thought of going to university. Now I'm going to be attending UC in the fall because of the budget cuts, so I have to wait 1 more semester. But it's my last semester here at COS. And this just helped me out so much. So I think cutting the program is a big mistake. So hopefully you guys find in your hearts to not, cut this program. And students, our mentoring is one of the biggest things. You meet a lot of great people. Like Steve Barrett here, he was my mentor, and he still helps me out till this day. It's also helped me get more involved with ASB, College Republicans community. I'm also helped out at Very Boxing Club with Richard Torres. It's Very County Republican Party, fundraisers for Devin, things like that. And I mean, it's what this motivated me to be a better person and just want to be successful in life. So hopefully you guys don't cut. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jessica Scarino. Ms. G mentioned me up here when she was up here a couple minutes ago. As I said, she said I'm a student at the University of California, Riverside. And I just recently got decided from Washington, D.C. I was out there doing my internship in Capitol Hill and working with the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. It really saddened me when I heard he got here, and I came to visit Ms. G. There were a couple of the momentums from the nation's capital. She told me that Luz's position was going to be closing. I've known Luz since I first transferred in 2008 here at College of the Sequoias, and everybody at Puente program has been such a great support with all these students here, and including myself. I'm here as evidence to show that I transferred on. Right now, my goal is actually to go to law school. I want to pursue criminal law and actually be able to work for the Department of Justice one day. And if it wasn't for Ms. G and the professors and people like Luz, their secretary, I would have never had those type of goals. But being there, having that moral support from them definitely encouraged me. I'm a first-generation college student. I never in my years dreamed that I would be able to be an intern at the nation's capital. Never would I have thought that just a girl from the Central Valley would be able to be up there with Congressman Devin Nunes, who is also an alumni here at COS. And his words of wisdom, and he keeps encouraging students from peer colleges and Sequoias. And I would have never had those ambitions and goals that I have now if it wasn't for the support system of one that has given me. And you see all those students standing behind this sheet. All those students, I guarantee you, are going to transfer on to 4 years. And they're going to stand up here one day and hopefully not be fighting for type of things like this, having such a great support program that one that has given offers to all the different students. A few minutes ago, I spoke to a couple of students I graduated in 2011 with, and I told them, what do you think I should tell the board regarding cutting one day? And they told me to ask someone, you guys, everybody here, one question. What's going to happen to students like myself? And want the students to transfer to universities? Who's going to be doing the position who Figueroa, our secretary, does? The last time I spoke to Luz, I was actually hoping to catch up with her right now and be able to speak to her. She took off and I didn't catch up to her. I wanted to thank her because my sister graduated in 2008, and the first person I wanted to contact her, I wanted her to come here at COS and be part of one thing. And she told me, well, actually, one is going to be cut off. And I was really, really disappointed. I was hoping my sister would pass on to this program as I did. I was also ICC representative. I was really active with the program and helping fund all the great causes that they do. And it's really something that showed me so many professional skills that I've taken and I know will last with me for a whole lifetime. I just really hope that everybody here and the board persuade you not to cut such a great program. Thank you.
James Espinosa, Associate Professor of English and co-coordinator of the Puente program. I just want to once again reiterate some students' experiences and how Puente, the research that's been done on Puente, right? It's a very research-based program, and Dr. Laura Rendon has called this approach validation theory. And the idea between validation theory is that students who have not seen themselves as college material are provided a space, they're provided a curriculum where they see themselves as college students in order to succeed as college students. And so it's integral that we have the clerical support to provide the activities, to provide the 5K, the organizational opportunities, the community outreach, and all that stuff takes, there's paperwork involved. The secretarial staff there is kind of the glue that keeps some of this together. So without having a concrete plan as to how we're going to keep up some of these activities and programs, it's not clear to me how we can make a decision to cut a position with no actual plan on how we're going to keep up some of these activities. Or we just say, you know what, that's it, we can't have much of this meeting no more, we're not going to be doing some of these fundraisers, we're not going to provide these scholarships anymore. What is the plan without the secretarial staff? There is no plan. That's problematic. That is problematic, right? I mean, that is problematic when there is no plan, but yet a cut is in place. So what we ask is to please delay on making such a decision so we can meet with other ministers, so we can meet and discuss what is a plan. What is a more logical plan to be able to continue the activity that we do, continue getting those reports, and changing these lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Teresa, I'd like to thank you, your students, and your staff for your comments. I think the board, I'm sure, has comments to make, and we'll take up the item, but I'm going to let Mr. Carrizosa speak on that right now.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We really do appreciate it. I've had the privilege of meeting many of you, maybe most of you, in one or more of the Puente activities. Just a couple of quick things to clarify, because these are points that as students, we might not always understand, but when you do read the documentation, when you look at a document like the board agenda, and Teresa referenced this when she came up in her comments, you'll see phrases like lack of work, And those are technical phrases. Please don't interpret that to mean that either the administration or the board believe that there is not work involved with the Puente program. I think we're all very aware of the volume of work. But when you're making a technical recommendation in a document like this, and you take a look at the reduction in workload, if you will, it represents a lack of work, because in the grant itself, in the project itself, when it's initiated to us, it comes with a recommended minimum number of clerical hours that the institution should provide. And for a cohort of 25 students, the recommended minimum clerical hours is 10 or 20 hours of clerical time. So when you provide more than that, and then you have to scale back, the way you term that when you put the document out for technical purposes is that you're reducing it due to a lack of work. But it doesn't mean that there isn't hard work going on in there. So I don't want you to feel like that. I don't want you to interpret it that way. It also isn't intended to be misleading in any way. We fully recognize that while the program sponsors 2 cohorts, there's 25 students each year selected, that there's subsequent students in the following years who continue to be a part of that and be benefited from that. I think that's the reason College of the Sequoias grew the program, because there was a time when there were only 25 seats. And so what we did is we saw the success, and I think we tried to enter into partnerships, particularly with that private sector. When Teresa mentioned the donations that we're getting, those were all valid, all legitimate donations. It's because the program is expensive. It does cost money. And the price per student is a valuable investment, but it is an investment. And I think regardless of what the board decides to do later this evening, one of the things I want all you to realize is whatever decision they make, don't interpret it to mean that they don't feel like the program is valuable or that you individually are not valuable. You are. But like so many other programs that have been before us in this difficult time, whether it's the honors program, foreign language, veterinary tech certification, a number of programs have come, and like you have all said, we realize these are really tough budget times, but don't cut us. And so the hard part, I share that with you only so that you understand where the board sits tonight. You're going to see a fiscal solvency plan. And Proposition 30 has made our funding a little bit better, but we're still running a deficit. The college still has not corrected our deficit. So somewhere, at some point, in some places, we need to make reductions. So one of the reasons the Puente project was brought forward is that it's a program that at one time had 25 seats, and we chose to expand it. We set out to make it bigger and took on more expense. And while other programs have been cut or eliminated before they could even start, it seemed at least appropriate to recommend that this one come back to its original scope, which was our commitment. Not to say that we don't want it to continue or that it couldn't be considered again for restoration in the future. And I don't know what they'll do. This is truly the board's decision. We'll work hard to do whatever they direct us to do. But I wanted to share a little bit of that with you because you all took the time tonight to be here and to speak. And I wanted you to understand there's some thought and some emotion behind this on the administrative side as well. No one up here enjoys this position of having to look at reductions in programs. And it has nothing to do with the individual people who actually sit in those jobs. But thank you guys so much tonight. Just being here is another example of how proud you make us through the work that you do in the program. Oh, and if I could, Madam President, I'm sorry, but my job was to make sure you did everything just right tonight, and I already made a mistake. Because when we went to public comment, we moved past the requirement we had to adopt our board meeting calendar for next year. So could we go back and take care of that business?
Okay, and before we move on, I'd like to tell you, Teresa, you have mastered public speaking with them because all of them did a wonderful job. And that is a skill that's hard to get to, so that was wonderful to hear. Okay, I did pass that. See, Stan, you were supposed to take care of that, and I thought you'd keep going. I didn't realize I was supposed to take over. So we're on item E,
Yes.
which is the schedule regular board meetings for 2013. We're voting on these or just accepting them?
No, we do vote on them, but remember we have a couple of variations that we wanted to point out.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
There's a couple of changes suggested here in red for the July meeting and September meeting. Those were my requests in order to accommodate the trip I had planned. However, it turns out that the change in July 8th is I'd like to withdraw that request. The original date of July 8th still works for me. As an accommodation, I hope the board can extend it smoothly
Okay, so you're requesting that we leave July 8th on there, but keep the September 16th would be your request?
Yes.
Okay, and then I have a request that I didn't realize until this morning, and that was my error. The June meeting, I am in Washington DC with my son on a World Strides trip. John is Hanford, so it might be a perfect time for you to take over. But if the board chooses to move that, I would go with that as well.
I'd much rather move it, but you're still retired.
I will leave that up to my fellow board members. Stuck on that June meeting, is that a critical meeting stand for anything, business we have to move our June meeting? I know school's out.
That's a joint meeting with Hanford.
Oh, that's a joint meeting, is that been set with Hanford already?
It's usually a joint meeting set with
No, the
Hanford.
dates haven't been established.
So we have not established a firm date, but it says Hanford because we meet jointly with Hanford during that June meeting. So if the board chose either the Monday prior or the Monday following, and we made that correction tonight, we could include that. And that piggybacks on what we're giving you as the options for the November meeting, which is to go down there and take a look at Veterans Day again, falling with a Monday holiday. So we're asking you to consider the Monday before or the Monday following.
I would say probably June 17th, so it doesn't conflict with high school's graduations.
Okay.
So the alternative to June 10 would be June 17. How does that look on board member calendars?
Everyone okay with June 17th?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, and then let's talk about November. Monday, November 4th or the 18th, and my question to you, Stan, was do either affect any of the orders of business for December? Or any timelines? Is one better?
No, I don't think so. If there's a preference on the part of the board, we can make either of those work.
How about Tuesday, 12th?
That's an option.
I would prefer a Monday.
So it would be Monday, November 4th or Monday, November 18th. It would just be one Monday out of cycle.
Pick one.
The 4th is fine.
Okay, November 4th it is.
So would you highlight the recommended changes, and then we can call for a motion on that with those changes?
Okay, so we're going to make a change to the June meeting to the 17th. September will be the 16th, and November meeting will be on the 4th. Do I have a motion to approve that calendar for the year?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we move on to committee.
Item F, appointment of committees.
Okay, now it's time to appoint our committee members on the board budget subcommittee. Greg and Ken have been sitting on that committee, and I know it hasn't been real active this past year, but I think in the coming year we're going to see more action in that committee. Do we want to make any changes to that? Or Greg and Ken, are you guys good with sitting on that committee? Sure. Okay.
Yes.
The CCCT, Earl, are you still good with that? And the ACCT, unless another board member would like to take those over. Earl's been representing as well. COS Foundation, Greg?
That's fine.
Okay. Building Trades, John?
Sure.
Ag Advisory Committee, I'd be happy to sit on that committee. And then our Tulare County Committee on District Reorganization. Earl, we know this takes a lot of your time. Are you sure you want to do that? The Tulare County Committee on District Reorganization.
That's a pretty responsible position. Maybe you should share that.
I don't think Earl's been to a meeting yet, that's why we're joking about it. So we'll put you on there, Earl. You might end up with a meeting soon then.
One letter a year, okay.
Okay, is that it on that? We don't have to vote on those, right? Those are just appointments?
Those are just appointments, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to public comment. Am I good there? Is there any
Yes.
more? Any items on the agenda that anybody would like to speak to?
Point of order, you forgot 6D, authorized signatures.
Oh gosh, you could have let that one go, Steve.
It's just action to approve authorized signature.
Okay, so we have to vote on that one, correct? Okay, can I get a motion to approve item D, authorized signature forms?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Back to public comments. I'm learning as I go. Thank you for being patient with me. Any items on the agenda? Any items, public comments concerning items not on the agenda? Please state your name.
Kayla. I'll keep it short and sweet. I just hope I can speak as eloquently as you guys did. As some of you may or may not know, this past Thursday, I was removed as ASB president by the Associated Student Executive Board. This removal was not legitimate, since it did not follow California state law, nor the Associated Student Constitution. I plan on pursuing every available option to fight this removal. The students voted for me, the students believe in me, and if I am removed, it should be the students and only the students who should remove me, not the few and the mighty. With that being said, I believe it is best to sunshine this issue, and that is why I'm bringing it forth today to inform the college of what is going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other items, public comments, items not on the agenda?
My name is Matt. Last name is Deuser, spelled D-E-U-S-E-R. I noticed that the Carl Jr. Issue has been tabled to later. I am a sociology student who's doing a survey on the food system on campus. I have about between 600 and 700 surveys out right now. I've looked at about 37 of them at the moment. I'll be happy to share that data with you at the next meeting. I should have enough time by then to give you all that information. This survey deals with what usage consumers on campus are doing with all the facilities at the moment, what new facilities they may want in place of those, what their attitudes are about food, how they choose about food, whether they feel they should have a say in the process of food availability on campus. Just to let you know, thank you.
Thank you. We'll look forward to hearing back your results. And maybe you could bring a few students.
Yes. Actually, I am a student.
More students.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to reports. Our student trustee report, Daniel.
Yes. December wasn't a very busy month for us, but we did do a lot of key things. One of the main things we did for the month of December was we did a student task force to survey students for the food. And we had over 500 students surveyed, and the top result was Subway that they wanted because of Carlos Jr. Our teacher, Debbie Douglas, is planning on bringing the staff visits in to see what kind of plans she can draw up with them and then bring it to you guys. We had a Pace Craft Fair. We didn't host it, but we did sell crafts and sold desserts there. I think we spent around over $250 and we made $20. So it was kind of a loss, but we had a lot of things. We learned a lot of stuff from that, so we didn't include it next year. We also did a clothes drive for the Shelter for Battered Women and delivered that to them. And we participated in the Christmas parade. Our teacher wanted us to do something community-wise, just to be involved and let people know that ASB is active, and ASB does care. So a lot of our students went to the Christmas parade. And December 6th, we had a special board meeting during the status of the ASB president. The first meeting we had wasn't appropriate and didn't follow the law because we had a closed session when we should be open session. So we had another one, and we voted for no confidence, even though our initial plans were impeachment. No confidence felt more appropriate because of the hostile environment that many of the students had expressed to the board. And our teachers planning to get some of the ASB members to go to the Larry Center January 9th for the opening. And that's kind of it. Any questions?
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, Janet, that would be helpful. You just need to highlight on there when I'm off track. Oh, I just noticed that was there. That might be helpful. Any board member reports?
Earlier this month, I attended a meeting of the Building Trades Foundation as the board representative. This is in Portland. And the foundation had some discussion about a project of building another house out of Chico. And the only thing I did is contributed, I cautioned them about various safeguards necessary to make sure that we don't run into some issues we did last time, which is not having enough money to finish the project. And otherwise, there's quite a bit of enthusiasm in the group, and be interesting to see what happens.
Any other board member reports? I did attend 2 fun functions. I'd like to thank Steve Brenton. The Power of the Purse was a lot of fun. A nice group of people again that looked or seemed to be successful. Steve, I know you're there. Was it another successful year? It seemed to be. And then I also, one of my sons attended the basketball camp and thoroughly enjoyed it, and the players were all very cordial, and he can't wait to come back and play basketball in COS in maybe about 7-8 years, I guess. So thank you to those coaches and players who were out there motivating and encouraging all those students. Foundation report, Mr. Renton.
Good evening. We had a good last month. We did some things we're happy with. We determined at our last executive board meeting to donate. It's unclear in the back.
You're close to it.
Yeah. We decided to donate $38,000 to fund the Writing Center for the next year. And then to fund the honors program for spring of this year, we are giving not to exceed $2,000 so that program can continue through spring. I think there is in question after that. We've sent over 400 solicitation letters for the end of the year. We are involved with the ribbon cutting in Tulare, which is January 9th. It should be an exciting day for everybody in the county. We're looking forward to that. We are working on the Final Four extravaganza for the basketball team, which is a fundraiser, their major fundraiser for that team. And also Meet the Giants, which is a baseball fundraiser. Basketball is January 18th at the Convention Center. And basketball is at the Porter Fieldhouse, and baseball is at the Convention Center. Those are January 3rd and January 18th. We have confirmed our Hall of Fame inductees for Saturday, February 16th. Place to be determined. We're hoping to have it on campus, but that may not be a possibility. The 3 honorees who have responded are Margarita Prado Borrego, she's a PhD psychologist, founding partner of Human Resource Associates in Visalia, she graduated in 1973. Dr. Zoanne Eckert-Dreyer, a pediatrician in Texas, in hematology and oncology are her specialties. She's at Houston Children's. She graduated in 1973 also. And Harold Edwards is an author, historian, graduated in 1950. Power of the Purse made about $13,000, of which that committee wants all that money to go to scholarships. That will go before our executive board to determine how we do that. We also agreed to donate $25,000 to the scholarship fund and double the number of scholarships we did.
Great. That's great. Thanks, Steve. Accreditation report?
Hi, President President Cardoza, congratulations.
That's going to get confusing. Those sounds they start.
Yeah, January 11th is our convocation, and we will be continuing our campus-wide discussion on accreditation at the January 11th convocation. We should also, at that time, receive our final results from the ACCJC. They meet on January 10th and 11th. So shortly after that, we should hear what the final results are from our visit. At the last board meeting, I mentioned we were in the midst of our nursing accreditation, and I want to let you know that they did fabulously, as you would expect. So I really want to commend the nursing faculty and staff again for their outstanding work. And Superintendent Kara Sosa and I had a chance to meet with them, and they reported really great things to us about what they had seen during the visit. So they will be, the nursing division to come later and present some information to you on their self-study. But I just wanted to congratulate them today. And that's it. We'll see you on January 11th for convocation and more discussion on the presentation. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I've been reading in some of the information I've been getting, whether it's through CCP or through magazines, that they want to overhaul and change and make stricter the accreditation. That will no way affect us, right? I mean, we're through that portion, or could it possibly?
It won't affect us in our current cycle.
Okay, okay. So those changes can't be brought about quickly, like other things in our state. Okay. Thank you.
Any
Not
other
like budget
questions?
cuts. Thanks. Okay, let's move.
Okay, I have just a couple of quick items to highlight. One, I think I shared with some of you, but maybe not the opportunity to share with all of you, that one of the important criteria that we had to meet in successfully preparing to open the Tulare campus was to file with the Chancellor's Office and have approved our substantive change report for any element of our college or program which goes through significant or substantive change. We need to file a comprehensive report with the Chancellor's Office. It goes through a review process, and then we get an approval on that. So I did want to thank Dr. Dudo, and I know he had lots of folks helping him, but I think Dr. Lacerna probably worked on that. I know Bridget Hernandez helped with the internet. Kristen Hollaba was our kind of technical advisor, having been through the process with Hanford. Dustin Shaler provided some help with us for the website. Doug Brinkley helped just in terms of Tulare College Center budget information. So a lot of folks provided us the information necessary to make sure that our substantive change report was approved, and that was one of the last technical criteria to meet for preparing to open the Tulare campus. And then I got a little bit of good news today from the California Agriculture Leadership Foundation and a subsidiary of them called Common Threads, which is an arm of that organization that promotes the accomplishments and the honoring of women in agriculture. And we're really, being a strong agricultural area, really pleased to learn that today it was announced that our own board president, Lori Cardoza, is being honored this year as one of the honorees from Common Threads throughout the state of California, and she will be recognized in the spring, in April, at Cal State University, Fresno, and there will be a formal press release and a series of information sharing her accomplishments, not only in agriculture and leadership, but in community service, of which a big part is the help that you provide us here at COS. So congratulations, Lori. We're really happy for you. And then the last thing I'd like to do is provide a little bit of special recognition on behalf of the board and the administration. And I know in particular our past interim president and our senior management team. Many of you know Doug Brinkley, and Doug was here serving as an interim VP for us in administrative services for the better part of the last semester. Came into our college and our organization at a really critical time when we had interim leadership in place and we were going through a transition, and simultaneous with that, we had a very difficult budget challenge ahead of us. Regardless of the debate that we may have over the budget and the numbers, I think what you're seeing tonight in the Fiscal Solvency Plan report and what you've seen in the first and second readings of the earlier version of the Fiscal Solvency Plan is really a credit to Doug and how he was able to take his years of experience and a combination of critical information that comes to us in the state community college funding formulas and put it into a format that's logical and sensible for us as relative lay people. Not all of us are experts in finance, and it's easy to confuse or manipulate the data. So to have it put together in a way that makes sense and to have it be a tool that has helped to teach many of us and to help many of us understand the budget better has just been an incredibly invaluable contribution to our institution. Not to mention the years of experience that he's brought, the wisdom that he's brought, the maturity that he's brought. And for me personally, as the new president, I feel fortunate to have been able to work with him for the few months that we got together, because in his former life, he was a K-12 administrator also. And so he was very good at helping me translate the language and connect it to a reference that I was more familiar with in helping me understand the community college system. So one of the traditions we have here at COS is to provide special recognition with a little memento that we call a Step Beyond Award, meaning when you go above and beyond the call of duty, when you do something extra to help the College of the Sequoias, we want to recognize you and thank you for that. And so in keeping with that tradition and in keeping with Doug's attitude, when he taught us as the chief business accountant and the top bean counter for the district for the few months that he was here, is that we don't want to spend a lot of money on anything. And so we didn't. And and we had this, and we felt like if we could have spent $1 million, it wouldn't have mattered, because this is what we wanted to give you. We wanted to give you something that you hope that we hope that you will keep in your office where you work at home, and think of us and remember the fine contributions you've made to College of the Sequoias. And on behalf of the board and the senior administration, Doug, I'd like you to come to the podium so I can present you with this. Thank you.
Then I'll let you go first, and then I know there's board members that have comments, so we'll let you go first.
If I can, you know, I grew up in Tulare County, actually went to Porterville. It was, coming over here was okay. But, you know, when I arrived, I have a lot of family still in the area, and it was really neat to come on board with a team of administrators, faculty, classified staff, and board members that were looking out for the interest of students. I spent 40 years in education, and that's always been, you know, a primary goal. So prior to Brent calling me, I sort of checked that part out with a few folks, and that's what I was told. And it was my pleasure to be here for 9 months, and it went by faster than. Well, it went by faster than the first 40 years did, but it went by so fast because it was just a very positive team, and I realized there was differences and still things to be worked on, but I felt a part of that team. I never felt as if I was a newcomer from the day one when Linda opened the door for me and introduced me to everybody on campus. So anyway, I appreciate that, and I thank you for the opportunity. I'm not sure what this is, but I'll play some
We probably need to thank Brett first for finding you, but, you know, Brett said, wait, it's going to be good, watch. And he was right. He definitely picked you for the time you were in and what we really needed. And my opinion is that there could have been anybody better for the college, because not only were you able to work with all facets, you were able to take the numbers and all the new challenges that we're facing and put those in a format that made sense, so that we could not just utilize the numbers today, that we could forecast. And with our fiscal solvency plan, we're going to see, I think you and Brent have worked well together, and I foresee we're going to see the results tonight, and we're going to continue on. So thank you for coming to the college, number one, accepting that challenge, and for taking the challenge and making something of it. Anybody else?
Doug, thank you for your service to COS. You came at a time when things are tough, and you did a lot of things to make us understand some of those numbers. So I don't like the term bean counter, and there's probably reasons why, but you're way, way above that. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you, Doug. You have a way of taking about 300 or 400 pages of stuff, condensing it down about 3 or 4 pages, so it's very understandable. It's impossible for a layman like me to understand budget issues without people like you to help me connect it all together all at once. And I thank you for your skill.
Okay. Thank you very much. We hope you're not. Before I move on? Okay, moving on to reports. Academic Senate report.
Okay, there it is. Congratulations, Lori. That common thread, that is a real one.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that I was not a very good Puente mentor, but I did have 2 mentees, and it was a wonderful experience. I'd just like to say that you have a nationally recognized Puente leader in Teresa Guadiana. And I think if she tells you that she needs clerical help to run her program, you should listen to her. We have 2 awards coming up. One is the Hayward Award, and we are recommending Amy Rangel or Rangel. She is the gallery coordinator. She teaches art. She's a fantastic artist herself. And she's the first adjunct faculty to ever be considered for this award. So we're very excited about it. For the Regina Stanbrecht Strab Diversity Award, we are again putting forward Gaylord Swisegood and Alicia Crumpler for the work that they do with our students with Safe Zone and also out in the community. We put them up for this award last year, and I think they were almost there. So this year we'll write it even better. We are also going to be talking about the food concessions here at COS. At our next Senate meeting, we've asked Joe Rope, a franchise owner from Subway, and also the ASB to come and give us their take on what they've learned through their surveys. This is an issue that seems to be very hot on the table right now, so we hope that the Senate will be able to give you a little bit better idea of what's going on this issue. Obviously, we all want to eat healthy, good food. There are 2 MOUs on the consent calendar, number 6 and 8, that interest the Senate. These MOUs create closed or restricted courses that cannot receive apportionment because they are being funded by outside sources. One is the Corcoran High School is going to actually fund adjunct to teach out there, and the other is the foundation who will be funding, I believe, 5 courses out in Tulare. This model of letting private parties fund adjunct faculty to teach somewhere in the service area may become more popular as a way of offering more courses. However, does this practice provide the open enrollment that is required by law? That will be the focus of our next Senate discussion, I'm sure. Any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. Council President's report, Mr. Sentz. You're not Mr. Sentz, Mr. Natoli.
Tell by the hair.
Thank you, Lori. I'm Steve Natoli. I've had to be with students, and he asked me to read his message to you tonight. Just a couple of things this evening. The association is pleased that during the last 2 weeks, when several contractual aspects came up, the district was much more proactive than it had recently been, and actually approached the association to try to find common ground through the contract and discussion. We are encouraged by this and hope that this is a harbinger of a more productive stage in our relationship. If so, the association heartily welcomes it.
Thank you, Steve. And there was no, CSEA, I was going to skip right by you and you could have pointed order me against the CSEA President's report. Sorry about that.
I
was going to congratulate you on getting nominated, but I don't know if I will.
Might want to wait.
By the way, congratulations on all the new officers. You've got a big job ahead of you. First, I would like to say, on behalf of the COS family, you've heard me use that term before, and I do believe in that, but something happened to one of our COS family, and the COS family came forward. One of our custodians, who was sick at the time in bed, his house burned to the ground. He lost everything. And I got to tell you, CSEA, I know on the whole, but also many certificated and many administrators came forward and donated a whole lot of stuff to help Sylvester make it through this worst time of his life. So I just want to say on behalf of the COS family, that's what makes us good, and that's what makes me proud. So way to go, COS family. That's all of you out there. Second, I would like to say thank you to, as I call him now, Stan the Man and his Honorable Judge Brash. We have open door policy is very well appreciated. There's been many issues. A lot of them are on this agenda that have come forward and been able to go in and talk through them. Some changes have been made, and I do thank you for that. I would like to say on behalf of two of the items, one is the Puente program, also on behalf of the Student Health Center. These are student services that are very important to our students, and they do a very good job. And I know money is tight and cuts are coming, and it's hard times. It's sad to see. I have said it before about the Puente program that I wished instead of cohort of 25, they could do a cohort of 2,500, because if we could use what they do with most of our students, we could become the top community college transfer, because they do a great job. On behalf of the health center, the cuts are hard, and we're going to serve students less. And I know you guys are looking into this, and the money matters. And so, again, on behalf of the COS family, thank you for coming forward in the time of need for one of our own. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for sharing that story. It reminds all of us that there's more to this college than some of the challenges we face today. Okay, there is no CASAFA report. We received an email from Mr. Nickel. He's not here tonight. General obligation bonds, these are just announcements, right, Stan?
Correct.
Okay, the next meeting for School Facilities Improvement District number 2 for Measure I is March 5th, 2013, and for Measure J, February 25th at the Clary College Center. Brent, you're already getting ready. Can't wait, huh? You're up next.
Chocolate a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we look forward to it. It's all yours.
I was just going to suggest that, Greg, if you'd like to come around this side, you can.
I think we might be able to see it better.
Just by turning around and looking at it. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to share our revised fiscal solvency plan. You'll recall that in October, we shared a first read of our fiscal solvency plan, and we're prepared to bring back for a second read the FSP in November. However, we got a bit of good news when Prop 30 passed, and we decided, because the numbers would change for the better, we would bring back a revised FSP here in December for a first read, and then come back in January with a second read. And so I'll walk through. It's a similar format. You'll recognize the format. We'll walk through some assumptions, first of all, some revenue projections, and then we'll get into two scenarios. The first scenario is what would happen to the college if we just chose to do nothing, make no further cuts, and then the latter half of our presentation, we'll walk through our proposed fiscal solvency plan and what that will do to preserve our fiscal solvency. So first of all, we know that Prop 30 passed, and that is great news. But it does beg the question, does that solve all of our budget challenges? And unfortunately, the answer to that question is no, it does not. It avoids another $2.7 million in cuts, which is great news, but it does very little to restore the $4.1 million that was cut out of our budget last year. So we've still got some work to do. What does it mean for COS? It means our revenue for this year will be very similar to what it was last year. Our funded FTES last year was 8261. They will be giving us a modest restoration addition of approximately $366,000 to bring our total funded FTES to 8350. We're anticipating that funding remaining flat through the 15-16 year. Our medium-sized college threshold, you'll recall at one time it was at 10,000 FTES. That is down to 9,350. That is because every time we've taken a budget cut from the state, it's been done as a workload reduction. So they've moved down the medium-sized threshold proportionately to 9,350. And that'll be important in this next slide, which is our revised revenue projections over the next 3.5 years. You'll see there in the 2013-14 year, we show our earned FTES as 9,350. That's because currently we're getting funded for 8,350, but we've missed the medium-sized college threshold for the last 2 years, assuming we don't get it this year, and we're certainly not on pace to get it. So next year is the year that we need to get it. The state will let you miss it 2 years, but in the third year you need to hit your medium-sized college target or you lose it for subsequent years. So we put the 9,350 in red and put an asterisk next to it just to show you briefly what would happen if we fail to get the 9,350 next year. We would lose $1.1 million in the 14-15 year, and then every year subsequent to that, and probably never get back that medium-sized college status. So our goal, and we've got a strategy for going after it, but our goal is to beef up FTES next year to go after that medium-sized college threshold of 9,350. And all of the assumptions you'll see from here on out take us back to the original revenue right here of $46,400,000. You'll see there under revenue, we have state allocation at $42.9 in 2012-13. That's $2.7 million higher than it would have been in a Prop 30 fail scenario. We're also getting $366,000 there in a Prop 30 restoration fund. And that's the money we'll use to try to beef up FTES, and I'll be later on in this presentation. So these are our revised revenue projections for the next 4 years. Now I want to walk you through what would happen if we just felt like, well, that's probably enough. Prop 30 passed, so we don't have to make any cuts. I want to walk you through a 3.5 year scenario to see what would happen to our fund balances through that inaction. You'll see in 2012-13, we show a subtotal of expenses of $45 million. We show the extra expense in pursuit of the mid-sized college designation. And then we show our technology, COPs, and our OPEB. Those are areas that we've traditionally paid for out of one-time revenues for a total expenditure of $48 million. That creates for us a structural deficit, expenditures more than our revenues of $1.7 million. In a scenario where we do not make further cuts, the only thing that we've cut so far is we've reduced our expenditures on employee health care of $404,000 this year. Our total one-time budget resources for this year alone would be $1.3 million. And it would just grow from there on out. Our structural deficit continues to rise. And the reason is because if you look up here, our ongoing budget cuts would be substantially less than our annual increase to the budget. These areas right here. We've got some slides to detail that out. In the ongoing budget reductions, all we've saved is our cap on healthcare benefits, which is good, but it's not nearly enough. Because when you look at our ongoing budget increases, we spend more than $500,000 a year in step and column increases. PERS and STIRS go up periodically. We do have new costs in Tulare for utilities and insurance, as well as custodial help. And then we need to add grounds at Hanford and Tulare. And so next year alone, our costs will go up by $1 million, and subsequent to that, in the following 2 years over $600,000. So you can see our ongoing increases outweigh our ongoing budget cuts, so our structural deficit continues to climb. Therefore, our one-time budget resources continue to climb in that bottom line. And so if I bring it all together in this slide, this is what happens if we do nothing. And you'll see the years going down the left-hand column, and it shows our fund balances sort of across the top. OPEB is our other post-employment benefits account, $4.8 million. We've set that up to pay for retiree health care benefits. Our actuarial study shows that we should have at least $11 million in that account, so we're lagging behind what the recommendation is. But in this scenario, we'd actually have to spend down that account and pay for our retiree health benefits instead of out of our general fund, pay for it out of this one-time reserve known as the OPEB account. In terms of the Visalia bond, that would get spent down from $3 million. And by the end of 15-16, it would be done. It would be zeroed out. And then our district accounts, which includes several things, including a one-time revenue carry forward of $996,000, our general fund reserve, as well as our local retiree health and welfare account, totaling $4.2 million. That would dwindle down to $1.2 million by the end of 15-16, which is $1.5 million less than what the state recommends that we keep in a general fund reserve. We've separated out the farm reserve here in the right-hand ledger only because that was generated through the sale of a capital asset, namely land, and the board has kept it as a restricted board account. We actually could include that here, and it would buy us maybe another 6 months into the 16-17 year, but certainly nothing enough to solve our problem. But we've kept it separate only because it's traditionally been kept separate, but we wanted to list it so as not to forget about it. So those are our ending balances, ending 15-16, $700,000 in an OPEB account, nothing in our Visalia bond account, and $1.2 million in our district reserve. We couldn't even pass a budget through the state with those kind of reserves, especially considering we'd be running a structural deficit in excess of $3.5 million for the 16-17 years. So that's just kind of a worst case scenario as to what would happen if we just do nothing right now. Now we'd like to show you our plan for keeping fiscal solvency. The assumptions are that Prop 30 does pass, that we do not lose $2.7 million in revenue, and that we actually pick up an additional $366,000 in restoration funds. And I'm sure there are those in the audience that are thinking, well, why would you consider this an assumption? It's already happened. Well, Prop 30 is passed, but in terms of us not losing $2.7 million in revenue and us actually gaining restoration funds through this, that's still an assumption. The state can tell us one thing, but until that money hits our bank account, we really don't know that it's going to happen. We found that out firsthand last year when time after time we were told no more cuts, and we continued to get cuts as late as February, March of last year. So those numbers are still assumptions. We're also assuming that the mid-sized college threshold will remain at 9350. We're assuming the funding will remain flat through the 15-16 year. And then we're also assuming we're going to rely on 3 different areas. A combination of using one-time resources, a combination of also using budget reductions in kind of everyday, day-to-day expenses, and also by using the due process of negotiations to achieve fiscal solvency. We've really tried to spread out the cuts in those 3 areas. I think you'll see that in our plan. So this is a familiar slide from what I just went through. Again, we have the total revenue across the top, $46 million and change. But then going down the first column in 2012-13, you'll see we've spread out and detailed out our plan for achieving the 9350 FGS in 13-14. We are proposing to spend $366,000 in those restoration funds. Spend that by offering a limited summer offering in 2013, coming back and doing the same thing in summer of 2014, as well as deficit spending an additional $300,000 and beefing up fall of 13 and spring of 14 offerings, just so we can chase the 9350 mid-sized college threshold. The other expenses for technology, COPs, and OPEB remain the same. And you'll see, even with $2.7 million more that was not cut, we still have a structural deficit of $1.7 million. And to mitigate that, instead of just having $404,000 through a healthcare cap, we actually have $1.3 million in ongoing budget reductions in the current year, and then next year 1.1, which means our reliance on one-time budget resources reduces down to $400,000 here, just under $800,000 there. Again, I'll show you a detail of these accounts. First, for the ongoing budget reductions, you'll see in the general fund line items, instructional supplies, equipment repairs, student health, overtime, we've got $100,000. We reduced contract services by $59,000. We reduced adjunct counseling hourly by $15,000. The next area, we're expecting some of our programs to use some of their own reserves. We figure if the district is using its reserves, some of its individual programs can use theirs. Then we get down to an area called attrition, retirement, and layoff. And we've proposed $50,000 in reductions to classified positions in the current year, as well as another $50,000 in ongoing budget reductions next year. We've assumed the retirement of 6 full-time instructors, figuring on a differential of $25,000 when we hire back those 6 positions. So we're figuring $150,000 in ongoing savings. We've taken half of those savings this year, primarily because 2 of our full-time instructors have given notice and will be retiring after the fall semester. And so for the spring, we will replace them with adjunct instructors, and so there'll be a savings of $75,000. So we're actually getting half of the total $150,000, we're getting half of that in the spring. And then next year, we'll add the second $75,000 to go with the first $75,000, which is an ongoing savings. And then in management confidential, we have $200,000 in ongoing savings this year, and then couple that with another $200,000 next year will be $400,000 total in ongoing savings. We're making an adjustment on reassigned time and special assignment to the tune of $145,000 that will save us in next year's budget. We already talked about the benefits cap, totaling $404,000 this year and $205,000 next year. And then the final line item here is we're proposing a 2.5% salary decrease across the board for all groups. That's actually half of what we proposed in our original fiscal solvency plan. You'll recall that proposed a 5% salary decrease. This has cut that number in half. We will be seeking a 2.5% salary decrease from all units. The next slide is annual ongoing budget increases. And again, this is a change from our first FSP when we had proposed a freeze on step and column for all groups for 2 years. This does not propose a freeze. This continues with step and column, so that's fully funded, over $500,000 a year. And then the utilities, insurance, custodial, and grounds, like in my first slide. So coming back to this income statement, if you will, down at the bottom, you'll see our total one-time budget resources have been reduced to $400,000 in the current year, $771,000 next year, $885,000 in the subsequent year, and then obviously we're talking in the 15-16 year, it gets a little bit hazy. We haven't done much to deal with that. Obviously, it's our hope that by that time there's something breaks loose from the state, COLA or something to help mitigate that cut. And if not, we'll have to revisit at this plan, and it will be updated from year to year. So as this gets closer, we'll have to deal with this number right here. But at any rate, the effect this has on preserving fiscal solvency is huge. Again, this is our same balance sheet of fund balances, if you will. And OPEB starts at $4.8 million and it finishes with $4.8 million to begin the 16-17 year. Our Visalia bond will continue to carefully use that on technology and COPs. We won't use it this year, but in the 13-14, 14-15, and 15-16 year, we'll use it, and it'll come down. If in fact this plan follows to a T, we would spend it down to $400,000 by the end of 15-16. And then in terms of our district accounts, we would use that one-time revenue that we've been carrying forward from indirect costs off grants. That's been accumulating for several years now. We would use that in the first 2 years of this plan, but we would still maintain the 5% general fund reserve, as well as the $454,000 in retiree and health and welfare account that we keep here locally, and we wouldn't touch the farm reserve account in the far right. So in comparison, if I could just take you back to the similar screen from our what happens if we do nothing, you'll see that in that scenario, this is our bottom line. In the new plan, we're showing $6.5 million more in these areas. We do not borrow from OPEB. We leave a little bit in the Visalia bond, and we preserve our general fund reserve. In totality, we feel like this plan maintains fiscal integrity, significantly reduces our structural deficit, allows us to serve 3% more students than we're being paid for. It restores summer school at COS. It maintains step and column increases for eligible employees. It allows us to continue to plan and implement instructional and student service programs. It brings our employee costs to approximately 85% of our projected revenue, but it does rely on 3 areas, not only the due process of negotiations, but also general fund day-to-day budget cut reductions, as well as the use of one-time resources. So we feel like it's a well-rounded plan and no one area gets hit more than another. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions, hear your comments, take your directions, go back to any slides if you'd like me to. But again, this is a first read, and we'll plan on coming back in January and doing a second read, although I'll try to make it shorter.
Thanks, Fred. I'm sure the board members would like to comment. I'd first like to thank you for that presentation. And I believe we do have challenges. I'm a little concerned only that I'm not sure what the state's going to do, and I think everybody in this room probably feels that way, but I think we need to take the information we have to make the best decisions. But I would like to say that I think starting out, we all may have different opinions on how to solve the crisis, but we all have to agree on the numbers, and you've done a great job of being transparent, and I think the more transparent we can be and answer the questions, if we can all agree that this is where we're at and this is our starting point, then I think our solutions can be broader in nature, and we can all work together to solve it, because we know they're coming. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just have, Brent, just 3 or 4 comments and questions. I think in the slide where you showed the basically the do-nothing scenario, if I'm correct there, and quite frankly, I don't think anybody is, I appreciate you showing all the numbers, because it kind of paints a picture, and I don't think anybody's advocating a do-nothing scenario, but suffice it to say that if that's the direction we headed in, we could pretty much close our doors by 15-16 or the 16-17 year, so I don't think anybody wants that. The other comment I would make, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that is critically important that we do, and I think you alluded to that as well, is that we hit the target of the 9350 in FTES, because and by spending some money, we're able to leverage and continue to receive the $1 million or so for the large or medium-sized campuses. Is that a correct observation, Brent?
Absolutely. We have to go out to that 9350 number hard. We did not make the mid-sized college threshold last year, and we're not on pace to get it this year either. So next year is our opportunity to get it. And again, in January, we'll bring back a more detailed plan for pursuing that 9350, but it's a must that we get it next year.
The other comment I would make, I'm glad to see that we're considering that, and that would be the possibility of restoring summer school in some fashion, even on a limited basis in the near future and on an extended basis long term, because at the end of the day, that's something that the students sort of miss, and it would, I think there's a real need for that, so I'm glad to see that that's one of the options that we're going to consider.
I think you're right. You can't go out in public more than one or two times and not have somebody comment on the need to bring back summer school. I know that President Carrizosa, that was high on his agenda even last spring when he was pursuing his position. He asked me point blank, what were the chances of bringing back summer? So it was on his heart from the very beginning to bring back summer. And this is basically our first opportunity to do that. And we're going to do our best to make it happen.
I guess my question would be, where is the savings from the Puente program? Is that in there?
Yes, the savings from the Puente program. The savings from the Puente program would be in this $50,000 right here, classified positions. You'll see that under attrition, retirement, layoff, not only have we tried to spread the pain between use of reserves, employee concessions, and line item budget cuts, but even within those areas, we've tried to spread it out in different areas. So like management confidential, there's a couple $100,000 in cuts, and that'll be painful. In the academic area, we'll achieve those savings through retirements, hiring back at a lower rate, whereas in classified, we haven't quite had that opportunity. So we look for areas that could be trimmed back, and I think Mr. Carrizosa will be able to speak to the Puente project, or he actually already spoke to it a little bit in terms of what the original deal was, the fact that we had one level of service, and through the commitments of our business community, we were able to increase that. And some of those commitments haven't come through, we had to take a hard look at just kind of what we were doing and what we could afford to continue doing. And this was one of the recommendations that came forth was to cut that position.
First of all, Brad, I'd like to thank you for doing this. In order to understand what we need to do as the president, we need to look and see what the future might be. Without understanding what the future might be, we can't make decisions today that will guarantee we're still here. 3 years from now, or I think reverse, make sure we're providing everything we can. I won't repeat what my fellow board members have said, except I agree with them. And also, like to emphasize something you said, is that, we don't know for sure what we're getting until we get it. I know I heard in the news today that the state, the revenues are running about 10% behind what the projections were. That can't be good news. I also agree that the austerity you proposed is certainly not for this year. I also, I'm sure everybody agrees that none of these cuts make this college a better place. None of them. On the other hand, not facing fiscal reality is the worst alternative. Your plan 3.5 years out shows us still have a structural deficit of roughly $1.5 million. It's a little early to figure out how to solve that, but I would suggest to you that as you work with this model in the coming months, in the coming years, by the time we get to that point, I'd be a lot happier if the structural deficit was gone.
Duly noted.
Any other board member comments? Stan, do you have any comments on the fiscal solvency plan? No? Okay. Thank you, Brad. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you next week.
Let's ask a question.
I believe so.
Take a question.
Don't worry, nothing matters. Where can we get a copy of that? So that you guys, I'm sure we're gonna want to review it also, and if we have comments, it'll probably be next time.
It was posted on Friday at noon.
Okay.
With the agenda.
Okay, good.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. We'll take up items 2 through 11 as a group, but I believe we have an item to remove. Okay, we're going to table item number 8, so we'll be voting on items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. Any board member have any items they need removed from the consent calendar? If not, can I have a motion? Have a second? Second. All those in favor of the consent calendar, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Oh, who moved and who seconded? You need to talk a little louder, Dan, I can't hear. Or see us.
Motion, Earl second.
I know, we were talking about how we know we need the space, but we can't see each other or hear each other very well in this room, so it makes it a little more difficult to conduct business. Okay, we'll move on to our action items. Our first item of business is number 12, curriculum.
Hi, everybody. You have in front of you the curriculum list. These are the courses that have been approved by the curriculum committee and our academic senate. I just want to point out that the majority of these classes are being modified for a 5-year review. All courses are updated and reviewed every 5 years. And the others are being updated for the repeatability issue that we've talked about before. So you have architecture, art, business, drafting, history, series of history, human services, and 2 music courses being updated.
Any board member questions or comments? Got a motion to approve curriculum, new, modified, and deleted?
So moved.
Moved. By Ken, and Earl seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item 13, board policy 5130, financial aid services revised. Stan, would you like to speak to that one?
Yes, these board policies actually, item number 13, board policy 5130 is here for a second and final reading. You may recall that at our last meeting, we had staff come forward, present the changes and revisions to this VP. It's been through the elements of revision built into our participatory governance process, and it's aired now publicly for the last month. So unless you as board members have any further questions or comments, this is being recommended tonight for second, final reading and adoption.
I move we approve.
Moved by Greg, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Earl. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board policy 5130 passes. Moving on to item 14, board policy 5515. Standard spoke, good, and vote again. Same thing, ditto to that one. The off-campus student organizations, and this one is also a second reading, correct, Stan?
Correct, second and final reading.
Okay, you have a motion to approve board policy 5515.
So moved.
Moved by Ken.
Earl second.
Earl seconded. Earl, you got to talk louder. I can't see or hear you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 15, conversion of the management salary reduction to a premium cap. Stan.
To give you a little history on this item, a little over a year ago, about 18 months ago now, I think, we were in negotiations in the process of pursuing a cap on employee health insurance premiums that would be paid annually. One of the things that I understand took place first was a presentation of some premium cap options to different employee groups, one of them being the management and administrative group, including confidential employees. It was determined at that time that it was going to be a little bit more difficult and maybe time-consuming process to achieve premium caps for all employees, but there was still the need for some savings to start to be initiated. The way that that materialized among management staff at the time. And I think it was actually interim president Calvin who had calculated what the actual savings in a salary reduction would be that would be equal to managers taking cap on the health insurance premiums at that time. The savings was computed at 1.78% of a salary reduction. So in lieu of the premium cap, which couldn't be accomplished for all groups at the time, management took a 1.78% salary reduction. That was all management and confidential staff. And if you'll recall, I think it was in the form of 4 furlough days. So that has been in place and ongoing since that time. Subsequent to that, the board obviously went through the work that you did this past summer, and then earlier this fall took action to implement the premium insurance cap for faculty and for management. Later, a negotiated cap was put into place for classified employees as well. But now this is kind of what we would describe as the logical step in response to that, and that is to take what was that management salary reduction and now acknowledge that it's been converted into the actual cap on the management health insurance premiums. So since the month of November, management has had it doubled up just a little bit. They've had the actual salary reduction that was originally put in place in lieu of the cap and paying out of pocket for the cap. This action would convert that salary reduction to the ongoing out-of-pocket costs which management are incurring, which comes in the form now of the annual premium cap on health insurance.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve item number 15?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Greg. Any discussion? All those in favor of the conversion of the management salary signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 16, approval of employment agreement between the district and the VP of Academic Services. John.
I could probably take item number 16 and 17 at the same time. For your recollection, back in October of 2012, the board formally announced the hiring of Vice President of Academic Services as Jennifer Vega-Lacerna, and also the board announced that Brent Calvin was going to be the Vice President of Administrative Services. Both positions were to start on January 1st. At the October meeting, I indicated to the board that the details of their employment were not yet finalized, but I would be bringing back to the board an employment contract for both of these individuals. You have in your board packet the employment agreement for both Jennifer and Brent. So at this time, I'll take it first with number 16 and ask for the board to formally approve the employment contract between the district and the Vice President of Academic Services, Jennifer Vega-Lacerna.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 17. At this time, I would ask the board formally approve the employment agreement between Brent Calvin, Vice President of Administrative Services, and the district.
So moved.
Earl second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. On to one more, right?
Yeah, we felt bad that we left Frances out of the equation here, so we thought we'd give her an employment agreement as well. Her employment agreement prior to this one actually was set to expire in June of 2013. In an effort to get all the VPs on the same type of employment agreement, we redid Frances's employment agreement. It's a 2-year contract. It expires in June of 2015. And again, it's before the board for formal approval.
So moved.
Moved by Greg.
Second.
Seconded by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, John. Are you still on or are you done?
I'm done for
Okay. Okay. Item number 19, consideration of retiree employment contract for the position of provost of the Tulare campus.
Again, this item requires just a little bit of explanation and context. The recommendation before you this evening is for the appointment of the provost of the Tulare campus. In normal times and in normal conditions, this would have been a new and additional position added to the number of administrative positions currently supported by the district in order to prepare for a provost to assume the responsibilities for managing the campus at the Tulare College Center. Because our times are a little bit unique and we're in the deficit budget model and we're looking for ways to save the administrative costs, we're proposing to you a variation of that normal model this evening. This is actually an agreement that we're proposing we enter into between the college and our current Dean of Career Technical Education, Dr. Larry Dudo. Larry has served as the Dean of CTE, and in that position, because the majority, if not all, of his division and responsibilities will be soon relocating to the Tulare campus, he's been the lead administrator supporting and supervising at least the program shift of the college work from the main campus in Visalia to the Tulare campus throughout recent construction and preparation for the opening. So with that, what we talked about was a way to possibly staff the Tulare Center with a provost position, but do it in kind of an atypical way. And what we've proposed for you this evening is something called a post-employment retiree agreement. And what this means is that Larry is actually eligible for and has now exercised his option to fully retire under the STRS, STRS retirement system, effective December 31st of this year. As such, he's going to be a fully bona fide retiree of College of the Sequoias. What we've offered is an opportunity to enter into a post-retirement employment agreement with him, where he will come back and serve as the provost, but his earnings will be limited to the maximum amount allowable under the STRS retiree earnings system. So it's a very cost-effective model for the district. It gives us the opportunity to have an experienced person serve as the provost on that campus. The agreement has a fixed term to it. It would be through 2014, with the opportunity by mutual agreement for possible extension beyond that. It does have adequate, in fact strong, protections built into it on behalf of the district. In a post-employment retirement agreement, really the district has the majority of the leverage, if you will, because the employee that you're working with is really fully retired and invested in the system. So Larry's been very agreeable to this, and I think we feel strongly that he's a good person to not only start their second semester, but to spend the first full year getting that college open, serving as the provost. So the net effect of this is that there will no longer be a dean of CTE. There will be a provost who assumes those dean responsibilities and whose responsibilities are expanded to include those as provost of the operational supervision of the campus as well. It's a creative model. It's atypical. We've given assurances to our employee groups that it's not a precedent setting. It's not going to be the district's normal mode of operation. But in these unique times, it is a doable model. So long as we are not increasing the number of administrative positions and we're really upgrading one position to a new title, this is an allowable change, a very cost-effective change, and our recommendation tonight is the board give this full consideration for approval.
Madam Chairman, I would move for approval of the contract.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Congratulations, Larry. You get a retirement party and a welcome party all at the same time. Congratulations. Okay, moving on to resolution, or item number 20, which is resolution number 2012-32, appointment of CalPERS retiree to Student Health Services Coordinator. John?
Our student health coordinator, Stephanie Yoakum, is set to retire in December of 2012. In anticipation of her retirement, we started recruiting for her replacement back in October. Unfortunately, however, we're just having a hard time finding a replacement for Stephanie. We've had a number of applications, but none of them meet minimum qualifications to serve in the position. Obviously, this is a position that we need to have staffed when the spring semester starts. And we've approached Stephanie about the possibility of coming back as a temporary employee until we find a permanent replacement for her, and she indicated that she would be able to. However, PERS has some regulations which state that a retiree cannot work for 180 days after their retirement unless the Board of Trustees formally adopts a resolution which states that the position is a critically needed position at the campus. So what you have in front of you tonight is a resolution 2012-32 certifying the Student Health Services Coordinator as a critically needed position at the district, and I would ask that you formally adopt that resolution.
Okay, and that one directly results in November 21 also, right? They kind of go together, is that right or no?
No, they're a different one.
Okay. Okay, I would ask for, is there a motion to approve Resolution 20?
Madam Chairman, I move that we adopt Resolution 2012-32.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote. Jen?
Trustee Nunes?
Aye.
Trustee Mann?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye. Okay, moving on to 21, John.
Moving on to the icky part of my presentation tonight, I'm going on to the Student Health Center. And a couple of years ago, as you know, the board elected to cancel summer school. And as a result of that cancellation of summer school, a number of programs discontinued their services during the summer. The Student Health Services Department is one area that we kept present during the summer. However, at this time, it's just not economically feasible to keep personnel within the Student Health Services with either no summer school or a very limited amount of summer school. So with that said, we have before you today a resolution reducing the classified positions within the health center, 2 of the positions, reducing them from 1, a college nurse, from a 11-month full-time position to a 10-month full-time position, and the second position within the health center that I'm here recommending that you formally reduce the hours of is our senior clerical assistant. Currently, she is a 12-month full-time position. The recommendation is that you reduce the position from a 12-month full-time to a 10-month full-time position. And with that, I would ask that the Board Resolution 2012-30 be formally adopted.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2012-30?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Mann? Aye. Trustee Nunes?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye. Okay, moving on to item number 22, resolution number 2012-33, notice of intended action to reduce classified services due to an existing lack of work or lack of funds for the printing program.
I'd like to echo some of the comments Mr. Carastosa made earlier tonight, in that it's never easy to make cuts. And I've personally been up here several times asking for the board to either eliminate programs entirely or reduce services. And believe me, it's never easy, especially one that is such a valuable service to our district as the Puente program. Just based on what I heard tonight, I know they do great things. It's a great service to our district and, more importantly, the students. And if there's any silver lining in why I'm up here tonight, it's that we're not eliminating the program, we're reducing it. And that's a much easier sell than eliminating it altogether. I should also point out that the senior secretary within the position does have bumping rights. And fortunately, she will not personally lose her position with the district, but she'll bump into another position. And I'm quite confident that with positions opening up throughout the year, the person she ultimately bumps will have a position as well, which makes my job up here a little bit easier because individuals aren't losing their jobs. And I know that's a little comfort when you're reducing a program that's so valuable to the district, but during these tough economic times, these tough decisions have to be made. And at this time, I am formally up here asking the board to adopt Resolution 2012-33 12-33, which would eliminate the senior secretary position from the appointed program. And one final thing I should point out, there will still be clerical help provided in the appointed program through classified employees. And what I mean by that is even though we're eliminating one full-time equivalent position, we will be able to restructure when this reduction of hours takes place, where we will have clerical presence within the appointed program.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 2012-33?
Let me ask a question first. One of the students talked about, is there a plan? Maybe somebody can address that. You know, I mean, I did hear the student say that. Is there a plan?
I think it was our instructor, Board Member Sherman, and really what he was referring to is if some kind of a reduction like this is going to be made, how will the program exist in the absence of this level of clerical support? As Dean Bratch has mentioned, what we will do, first of all, this action, even though it's tonight, remember for classified employees, if we make a change in the employment status of a classified employee, we're required to do that at a minimum 60 days prior to that change actually occurring. In reality, this change would not be recommended for full implementation until the fall of next year. So what we would do in the process is use the second semester with the program still being fully staffed, as John said, to plan how to reorganize the time so that the program could have as much clerical support through the resources available in student services as possible. So it's not unusual to take an action like this and then in an area with a program like Puente to have some time then for the second semester while everybody's still in place, planning the redistribution of those duties and or how those duties would be shared, or in some cases what we would or wouldn't be able to do. None of us are kidding ourselves. I know that the work in the program is a lot. I know that the work that this individual does is a lot, and I think our instructor was right. There might be some things we may not be able to continue to do, or at least not do them at the same level. But that's similar to the other kinds of impacts that have been made in other programs where we've had similar kinds of reductions.
Yeah, these types of decisions, for me personally, as a board member, are difficult because, Teresa, I've watched your students come through the scholarship program even, and to see those students apply and gain scholarships and move on to universities, and most of all, to come back to our community and do really great things. It's very disheartening, but I believe that the students that are in it now are motivated, and I believe that this community, there are other options, and that we just need to continue to look for them, and the students that are in the program will cultivate the next group of students that may not be 50 coming through, but those 25, I think, can venture and help others, and we can be creative in trying to keep the main thread of the program alive. And I thank you for all your comments. Do we have any other board member questions or comments? Got a motion?
I see those two hands to speak up. There's no question about this. It's a very, very important program. If we don't cut this one, we need to cut that one. One thing we should look at, this budget already tells 3,000 students that can't come. We're going from MTS at 11,000, or nearly 11,000, down to close to 8,000. It's maybe 2,500. We're already telling 2,500 students they can't even go to school. And as much as it pains me to take an award-winning program and just change people's lives and reduce it, if we don't do this, that means we take it cut somewhere else, and somewhere else to tell more students they can't go to school at all. Take no joy in this, but I make a motion to approve resolution number 2012-33.
Second.
It's been moved by John, seconded by Earl. Roll call vote, Janet?
Trustee Zumwalt.
Aye.
Trustee Mann.
Aye.
Trustee Nunez.
Aye.
Trustee Sherman.
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza.
Aye.
Madam President, just a question or comment. Is my understanding correct that part of this program initially was to be funded by funds from the private sector, and that as time went along, some of those anticipated funds didn't materialize, and so therefore the general fund picked up the brunt or all of the expenses of the program. Is that my understanding?
I think it's a combination of those two things, Board Member Nunes. When a program like this is initiated out of a grant-funded program, oftentimes they'll give us the entire operational grant or an implementation grant to start the funding, and then a period of time where we're supposed to be building the capacity in our general fund to continue the ongoing expenses ourselves. The history that I've done on the program so far it shows that we did that. We were able to build the college general fund infrastructure to support the program for one cohort. As we got ambitious in the mid-2000s, we wanted, or the first decade of the 2000s, we wanted to expand that. And the conversations I've had with Reese Foods and other major donors, the Hispanic Roundtable of Visalia and the Hispanic Chamber, is that there was a goal for there ultimately to be some form of a partnership where business contributions could continue to match district resources to expand to a second cohort. And as Teresa said earlier, many of those donations came through in one year or another, but none of them have been able to come through as a sustainable source of community donation on an annual basis.
Does the possibility exist that if a source of funds could be found to support the second cohort, that could be brought back at some point?
Absolutely. Or the reprioritization of the second cohort as a part of our district funding process. Either of those options.
You said that the problem with that is that when you get a commitment, it's not necessarily an ongoing commitment, and so when that doesn't materialize, then we're faced with making these kinds of decisions that we're making today. So
that's true. That's true. All to be considered.
It's kind of like the state budget. We don't know what we're doing.
If I may make a comment?
I believe so.
Let me ask a question according to my knowledge being here for the whole time. I don't know if you want me to stand up or you want me to go. You can hear me.
Can everybody hear?
When the previous president, Dr. Scroggins, had the forethought to say, let's increase this program. Yes, he approached major donors such as Reese Foods and another major donor, like I said, the foundation, the University of California, number of donors. But the intent at that time, and I specifically asked President Scroggins at that time, what is the intent? Does this have to be ongoing for that very question? He said the intent was to get the funding for 4 years and then it would be institutionalized by the college. This is the 4th year, so the goal was that it should have been institutionalized. And Mr. Carrizosa, I'm not sure you keep saying the word grant program, but those are just outside grants that we got. Puente is a district and line item district fund. It's not a grant program like Title V or something like that.
Correct.
It's always been district funded on a line item budget. So my understanding and why it's hard for this is because first we were told you're getting cut from 2 cohorts to 1 cohort, which was at the last minute we were told. And then now all of a sudden also the secretarial support. And like I said in the past, the program got to where it's at, but we had other support services at those times. We had more student help. I volunteered many, many, many hours of my own time to build the program to what it is. So yeah, cutting the program to me and cutting the secretarial, you're cutting a lot of the heart of the program that makes it happen. And my understanding from Dr. Scroggins at that time was if we had the money, and the only monies that didn't come through was 1 donor, but Mr. Fred Reese has continued to give his $10,000, and in fact, he's scheduled to give another $10,000 this June. The sole purpose for that was for the second cohort. So he's a major donor that's giving money, and I'm not sure what's going to happen to that $10,000 because it was supposed to be for a second cohort. So my understanding, and when I spoke to Dr. Scroggins, was that this was supposed to be institutionalized. It wasn't supposed to be getting ongoing funds and ongoing funds, but that it would be institutionalized.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, moving on to item number 23, a bid award for the welding machines for the Tulare College Center.
Thank you. As part of equipping the Tulare Phase 1 and Tulare Phase 3 projects, some of the items needed to go out for competitive formal bids. One of those was the welding equipment for the welding lab for the welding shop. On November 6th, 3 bids were received and opened for this project, and you see your attached bid sheet there. For the low bidder of $314,242 for KDM Electric. This is split funding between the state and Measure J to fund all of these welding machines, but staff and the new provost are telling us they are very much needed for student education. So with that, it's recommended that the Board of Trustees award the bid for the Tulare College Center welding equipment to KDM Electric.
Move to award the bid as recommended by the board.
Motion by Earl, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim. Eric, I just had a question, any discussion? On that one, so how come it didn't go to the lowest bidder? Did I miss something there?
The lowest bidder was actually a non-responsive bidder.
Okay.
There was a question, they did not possess an electrical contractor's license to install welding equipment that was required. Okay. When that came up, I made sure we were legal, and I shipped this off to legal counsel to give us a recommendation, and they recommended to find a low bidder non-responsive.
Okay, which is a disappointment because we sure like supporting our local people. You know, board members, we hear that a lot, right? Okay, great.
I have a question. Where's the money coming from?
Partially Measure Measure J, and partially the state.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Are we done with our last item? Item 24, change orders, multiple contracts for the Tulare Center Phase 1. Eric.
As you see here, as we're getting closer to the completion of the Tulare Center Phase 1 project, we're finalizing all the change orders, all the final changes, and you see in front of you several contract changes for change orders with several different vendors. As typical for our change orders, they're made up of enhancements directed by staff, some omissions, and some errors. And as typical, when we find someone in error, the responsible party is the one who pays for that. So we have a combination here. We are on track for school to open for the first week in January, the spring semester, about mid-January. The Phase 1 project has $236,000 remaining in its contingency account. The locally funded project, Phase 1, has over $80,000 in its contingency account. So it's recommended that the board approve the change orders for the acoustical ceilings, elevator, finished flooring, paving, both state and local, plumbing, roofing, and surveying staking portions of the Tulare Center Phase 1 project.
How would we approve the change orders?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Eric, are you on track to finish with enough money in there?
Yes.
Almost done. You're down to the wire now.
We're down to the wire.
And Earl doesn't have any comments for you. He's going to put out
I
your
have
Christmas.
a question.
That's our Christmas present.
The elevator contract, is that going to be charged back to the architect or someone?
In this case, it is not, because that's an omission. The way that the contract reads is if it's an omission, the district pays for that. However, what we don't pay is additional design fees for the design team. That's different. And an enhancement, we pay an additional percentage as part of their contract. In an omission, we don't pay them extra money. And just so we're clear on this particular one, Earl, these are handrails on top of the elevator car. So once
you have handrails?
or when someone goes to work on it, there are handrails on top of the car.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of change orders, accepting the change orders, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, with that, I'd like to lastly thank my board members for having confidence in me up here. I hope I don't let you down. I'd also like to thank you quickly for your support this past year. It's been a tough one, and I'm hoping I can be available more so this next year. And I just want to thank those of you that are still here for your support this past year, and I hope that this next year will be better the college, and myself personally. I'll put it that way. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, meeting adjourned.